All right, folks, I got a hell of a show for you today with SG Anon joining me in just a little bit. Folks, you all can feel it. Hopefully my mic sounds good. Hopefully the mic sounds good. I'm using the computer mic. I'm in my hotel room. Mr. David, ¿quieres toallas, Mr. David? Folks, I've been watching a lot of immigration videos. I just watched a video where these two shoplifters, see, these people know the law very well. And when they get arrested, they know they can post bond and get out of jail. So you got these professional shoplifters from Argentina, from Honduras, from all over doing these shoplifting raids, getting away with it, posting bond, getting out, never showing up to court. But now they're being deported. And the whole game has changed. And you can see the faces. You should see the look on their faces when they know they're getting taken away. But I have a kid. Pero mi hijo. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. It's a completely different game now, folks. It's changed. The game has changed. Folks, you can Venmo me, 𝗑-Rod1977. If you appreciate me, all the work that I do, the hard work that I do, I appreciate you. When the lights go out on Amazon, please leave an honest review. That's all I ask for. Also, my mama's book, The Mexican Mix, baby. Yeah. Obviously, you all know that what I'm dealing with both my parents are in a very bad condition right now. I don't know when one moment to the next is going to be the last moment with them. So prayers are also accepted, and I really appreciate all of you that are praying for me. It's been the hardest time of my life. Folks, get the healthy fat. I'm going to knock these out real quick. The healthy fat, the number one worst fruit, folks, for your waistline. Well, are you turning healthy fruits into highly unhealthy fruits without even knowing it? Fruit can be one of the healthiest things you can put into your body, but the majority of Americans are guilty of making this one single mistake that can counteract all the health benefits of fruit. Some fruits can help with occasional constipation, reduce bloating, and even help burn calories. Others can wreak havoc on your digestive system and energy levels. And when I found this stuff out, I stopped eating this crap. I came across this viral presentation from world-renowned heart surgeon Dr. Stephen Gundry, showcases the 3 fruits to stop eating today. You got to stop eating them. It was, and folks, I got to tell you, when I stopped eating these fruits, I feel so much better. I can't believe I was eating this crap. It was shocking. I had no idea. And after finding it out, I stopped eating these too. I'm going to put the link in the bottom there for you. So just click the link below, get all the information you need. Go watch it right now at thehealthyfat.com/Nino. Thehealthyfat.com/Nino. That's thehealthyfat.com/Nino. Get started on it, folks. All right, let's get into this. You might want to turn it down or turn it up. Yeah. I'm going through all the same old shit. I'm going through all of it, folks. I got to tell you, this is going to be a good show. This is going to be an epic show. Oh, and folks, Ringside with Nino today. We're going to be wargaming all of the upcoming National Guard deployment in different cities. What the hell's going on here? I'm going to get into it with SG. I got to say, there's a lot of meanings to this. There's a lot of even ritual meanings. And I'm going to go over that with 𝗀𝗏 on the back channel today. Hopefully I get him in there today. Gene Decode's up there right now on ninoscorner.tv. 𝗀𝗏, the Ghost, all the big spectacular guests. I got 𝗀𝗏𝗂𝗁𝗏 going to be the general in the general's tent today. That's going to be August 28th. Not today, sorry. General's tent, August 28th. You get to ask him whatever questions you need to ask him. He's going to be an amazing general in the general's tent. That's August 28th at 5 p.m. Also, folks, remember, Ringside with Nino today, 5 p.m. You'll see this ugly mug today, baby, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. All right, folks, you might want to turn it down or turn it up. You might want to turn it down or turn it up. I can't believe I'm going to do this in the hotel room. But this is my MO. This is how I enter. This is how I bring all the shows in. Oh, boy. I can hear people outside the door, too, so this could be kind of embarrassing. Oh, boy. All right, so here we go. Coming at you live from the apocalypse, folks. Yeah, baby. Yeah, let's go. All right. SG Anon will be joining us in just a few minutes. I think, folks, we can all see the writing on the wall. I think we can all see the writing on the wall. Pay attention. Pay close attention, because it's coming to a city near you. The Democrats and the deep state are terrified. They are terrified. Rumors are circulating that many are beginning to flee the country. Roger Stone made a post the other day just about John Brennan had fled to Austria. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know. But I've been talking to Juanito, and he says, oh, yeah, they're getting ready to leave. A lot of them are tried to leave. They've been stopped. Those are things I can't talk about on FluffTube. Jimmy Kimmel is now entertaining the fact that he might have to move to Italy. Why? Wait. What? Your show's here. Why would you want to even consider moving to Italy? Oh, maybe because, I don't know, you've done some things and you know you're in trouble. They know their time is up, and they see Trump preparing for his big final move. Trump is preparing for the big final move. Now, I understand, yes, he's going in to clean up crime, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. The cure has to be bigger than the disease, right? But wait a minute. Is he doing that, or is he getting ready to quell or neutralize the coming civil unrest? The National Guard will not only be deployed in D.C., but soon Chicago, Los Angeles, Baltimore, and many other Democratic hellholes. Why, do you ask? Well, yes, those cities are destroyed with high levels of crime, fentanyl, things like that. But is there a bigger agenda at play here? Like the coming arrests? I think so. And I'm going to get into that with SG on this show. Perimeters must be set and forces must be in place for the coming mayhem. If you think the left protested and rioted, what do you think they're going to do? Really ponder that for a second. And a lot of people are out there still, that's never going to happen, Really? I even put a survey out on my X because that's how confident I am. And I asked, how over the target am I? Most of you said over 90%, and I agree with that. I think overall 60-something% said I was over 80%. And I even put it out publicly because that's how confident I am. And I know I got my trolls, and I know there's bots. So I even consider that. I even factored that in, and I still went for it. How long will the military be on the streets for? That's the $1 million question, because that's where I get to be, if you're not a criminal, you have nothing to worry about, right? But still, we don't want our privacy invaded upon. We don't want to see military everywhere. Now, in these hellhole cities, it's garbage. It's turned to crap. So I can understand bringing in the military to clean it up. But I'll be watching this closely because I don't agree with them staying there. Because I don't want a police state. And I'm sure you don't either. And also, if you think about Palantir, ultra surveillance, artificial intelligence surveillance, where are we really headed right now? Are we just, are these arrests going to be the sacrificial lambs to bring in this AI surveillance and military police state? Problem, reaction, solution. So, folks, don't think that I'm just a rah cheerleader for Trump. I'm looking at all sides here. And I think that's the responsible thing to do for me to bring you, I guess you could, am I a journalist now? I don't know. A podcaster? That's what I have to do. I got to bring all sides here. David Icke would call this the totalitarian tiptoe. So let's hope when the military goes on these streets that they clean things up, they get things back to normal, and they leave. The most important thing is they leave. I guess we'll see how this all plays out. In this article, it says Trump's police state is developing. Trump is delivering an authoritarian government his party once warned about. For years, prominent voices on the right argued that Democrats were enacting a police state. They labeled everything a report of homegrown extremism, IRS investigation into nonprofits, a sign of impending authoritarianism, measures taken by state governments to combat the spread of the you know what that is, tyranny, an FBI search on Mar-a-Lago, a weaponization of law enforcement. Now the president is actually sending federal troops and officers out into the streets of the nation's cities. However, the right is in lockstep right behind them. So, you got your hardcore podcasters that are behind this. You got the Charlie Kirks out there. You got everyone out there that are really cheerleading for this. Me, I am not. Let me make that clear. I am not. I'm against this to a degree. I think, okay, let's clean the cities up, but get the hell out of here. We do not want to see military on the streets permanently. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here. At least I hope I do. Because that's not the country I want to live in. Now, if you need to send in the military a little bit, clean up, get arrests done, okay. And I'm not a criminal. So really, the sight of military on the streets doesn't bother me. But I am an advocate for privacy, and I do not believe that America should have military on the streets permanently. I think it should be, let's clean it up and get out of there. I don't know if you all agree with me on that. I hope you do. If you don't, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Please give me a thumbs up if you agree with what I'm saying here. Pentagon plan would create military reaction force for civil unrest. What do you mean civil unrest? What kind of civil unrest are you talking about? A military action reaction force for civil unrest? Well, what kind of civil unrest would come in? What would cause the civil unrest? Let's all put our thinking caps on. What would cause the civil unrest? Oh, I know. Arrests. That's what would cause a civil unrest. The Trump administration is evaluating plans that would establish a democratic civil disturbance quick reaction force composed of hundreds of National Guard troops tasked with rapidly deploying into American cities facing protest or other unrest. Wait a minute, I thought we had a right to protest. Okay, but we know what this is. We all know what this is because we know what protests turn into: violent riots, cities burning, right? I mean, that's kind of what the left does. And what would cause this? Oh, wait, arrest would cause this. I mean, if we all think logically. The plan calls for 600 troops to be on standby at all times so they can deploy in as little as 1 hour. The documents say they would be split into two groups of 300 and stationed at military bases in Alabama, Arizona, with purview of regions east and west of the Mississippi River, respectively. So he's getting ready for civil unrest. Folks, I hope I don't sound crazy like a loony, but it makes sense, right? Doesn't it? Let's bring us on. SG.
How you doing, Nino? Good to be back.
Hey. So am I making sense here, SG?
I think you are making sense, and we have to keep in mind as we go through this process, right? President Trump told us on the 29th of January, full bore, full stop, at a press conference at the White House in response to an aerial event that had occurred in D.C., that this was still a, quote, chess game with moves being made at the highest levels, end quote. And so you've got a back and forth going on. You have preparation clearly shaping itself up in a number of different ways. And the whole point of some of that preparation is to appear one way while doing something else. That is the nature of disinformation and deceptive sleight of hand warfare. You have to literally play the part. You have to act the part. In World War II, there was a great deal of expenditure, time, and resources put into deceiving the Hitlerian government in Germany about where the D-Day invasions were going to come ashore in northern France. As a matter of fact, they stationed an entire battalion and committed a vast amount of resources over a number of weeks to an area 25 miles further up the beach just to deceive the German intelligence and reconnaissance mechanism and apparatus. The exact same type of warfare, but stepped up by many magnitudes and dimensions of complexity, is happening in real time before the world, and it is incredibly exciting.
So what we're seeing here right now is basically Trump putting his chess moves in order, in place for mass arrests, is what I see. and he needs to quell or neutralize the coming civil unrest. So what better way than to use problem, reaction, solution against, use their own formula against them in making this happen? Do you agree with that, SG?
I absolutely do. And you just hinted at the brilliance of what a true counterintelligence or a true counterinsurgency operation is capable of doing, right? You're talking about creating the conditions organically, basically out of nothing, for advancement of your goal or your ball further down the field, while at the same time simultaneously inhibiting your enemy from doing the same thing with their ball going up in the other direction. And so when we look at, let's just take the issue of the census, for example. You know, when we look at what President Trump has said with respect to the census, he made that announcement on the 7th of August, so it's been a few days ago now. The exact same type of announcement was made in 2018 that resulted in a partial Supreme Court decision in 2019. But that very issue at this particular day in time has done a couple of different things that I think people really should dial in on and appreciate the multidimensionality here. We've not only directed the Department of Commerce, or we're going to direct the Department of Commerce to conduct a census that excludes non-citizens from the rolls, which according to the Constitution is actually the requirement for participating in the vote for electors. But we've also caused that same treasonous media apparatus that has been essentially feeding the masses this narrative over the last 30 to 40 years that the Constitution instrument is somehow archaic, or that it's outdated, or that it shouldn't apply in a modern era, or that the founders never foresaw the complexity of a digital age. It is that mouthpiece that is now telling all of those audience members left over that are still consuming that media that the Constitution is important, that constitutionalism is important to respect, that we have to adhere to certain constraints on power, right? It's literally inverting their messaging because we give them no other choice. They have to go with the opposite of whatever President Trump is doing. And here's where it gets really ingenious, Nino. When we look at that media apparatus talking about the qualifications for voting, of course, and the census itself, they essentially leave out the entire last 2/3 of the second section of the 14th Amendment, which outlines and stipulates the requirements for participating in federal elections. We also had this issue in 2019 brought up, the same type of messaging coming from the mainstream media machine, and the Supreme Court weighed in a case called Department of Commerce versus New York about the lawfulness of including a question about citizenship on the decennial 2020 census. And the court declined to hold in that ruling that including that question was invalid. The court declined to say that that was the wrong thing to do, or that it somehow was not allowed, but they did slap a procedural restriction on the individual case itself, and that made it functionally impossible to include the citizenship question on the 2020 census. So President Trump issued Executive Order 13880 on the 11th of July 2019 in response to that ruling to encourage and essentially force other areas of the U.S. government and the U.S. executive branch primarily to begin supplying interagency partners with all of the information they had about the demographic status of all parties within the United States of America. Now we have the exact same conditions created in the present day and time. We've also had 7 years of those interagency partners sharing that data with one another. And the same question, I believe, Nino, is going to be before the Supreme Court again ahead of the 2026 midterms. And we could get a ruling from the high court on what actually constitutes proper and allowable apportionment standards inside the United States of America, and who is in fact allowed to vote in U.S. elections going forward. This is the public beginning of the end for the Democrat Party.
I've always said that. I said the Democrat Party will not survive this. They are not going to be the Democrat Party as we know it will not be around in 2028. He is dismantling the Democratic Party piece by piece. This, what you just said right now, is a huge move that people need to factor in. They are done. The only thing they have left are mouthpieces like Beto O'Rourke, AOC. But I have a feeling as these arrests take place, the phases of arrests, I think they're doomed as well. Also, you know, while Trump is setting into these or sending in the National Guard, the only card that the Democrat Party now has to play is civil unrest, is chaos. And I think they're waiting on the opportune time to make this happen around arrest is what I think. And just remember, SG, they also have another big card to play, and that is the alien card. And as people may laugh and snicker at this, but it's an actual real card that has yet to be played.
Well, it's very interesting that you should bring those two subjects up, because it sort of catapults us from the surface level to the what we'll call the macro-civilizational level here, with the infiltration that occurred across our planet and across our society over a multi-hundred-year period, right? This is not a brand new situation. If anything, the dynamic of us being able to be aware of it and resist against it, that in and of itself is original and brand new. So as we look at this process, with respect to the civil unrest and the destabilization at the surface level, at what we'll call a more normie-friendly level, or a more interactive level of reality around us, that is absolutely going to come, as you highlighted, as a result of ongoing escalation of investigations that are going to swoop up increasingly more senior members of government going back a number of years, right? We've got an entity online that tells us that a certain individual named Podesta, who also happened to be the former White House Chief of Staff under the 44th administration, is going to be apprehended along in this journey. And that will be a significant marker for some of the very unrest that you're talking about. And then that catapults us into, well, who's actually controlling all of the shadow levers? Who's controlling the puppet strings that are causing that type of unrest to kick off in lockstep? Who's quite frankly, paying for the things like renter riots? Who's paying for destabilization in society? Who is coordinating the logistical transport, the communication needs, the ability to commune and gather together in certain places, rally points that are needed for those types of things? All of this is a coordinated black market criminal enterprise that goes above the Democrat Party itself in the United States, and really, spans a number of different international borders. And those pulpits, those arenas of our world, are the actual problem actors, right? Those arenas are ones that have been diplomatically immune, that have enjoyed certain privileges of anonymity and clandestine, reality, basically the entirety of their existence up until the recent day in time. And those arenas have advanced technologies and advanced communication capabilities with other, we'll just call them, other sentient beings out there that will have to come out in this process long term, or we as humanity cannot say that we've fully reclaimed our Earth. And I want to stress for the audience, Dino, this is our Earth, and it is our job to protect it, ensure that the planet can move forward in future generations, not only for our children, but for our balance in the cosmos.
Say that word again. Anonymity. How do you say that?
Anonymity.
Anonymity. And whatever. All right. So, all right. Also, SG. So let's think about this for a second. We also have to make sure that these forces are here to clean up and then leave. Correct. We cannot be walking into a police state where military is on our streets permanently. Correct. I mean, you agree with me on that, right? I mean, the cure has to take care of the disease, but it cannot be greater than the disease and become a disease itself, where we are going to be living a life with military on the streets and surveillance, because then the deep state basically got what they want. They got the police state, problem, reaction, solution. Am I right in saying that, SG?
You are, and that's something that I think we have to be, logical enough and mature enough to acknowledge, that we're playing a risky pathway, right? This was always going to be a risky game from the time that what I purport to say patriotic actors got control of certain levels of government and military in 2015 and 2016 and 2017. But as we go forward, you're exactly right. This cannot be a long-lived process. And that, I think, that's one of the reasons that we've seen things unfold in the fashion that they have really since late 2019 at the publicly visible space, right? We need the public to be in common agreement and common understanding on a number of core issues. It doesn't have to be a lot of them, but there has to be a number of core issues that there is agreement on. The level of criminality and the outright, chaotic feel of things in the United States, that can't be allowed to persist into the future. We do have to have transparent, election processes and ones that are fair and reflective of true outcomes. We have to have the ability to hold our government transparently accountable, and there has to be a redress and in many cases a redefinition of what the judiciary itself and certain portions of the judiciary are actually like, and what they're actually doing and how they functionally operate. The federal judiciary is subservient to the Congress, and most people don't realize that. The Congress can at any time choose to dissolve portions or the entirety of the federal judiciary. The only body that Congress cannot dissolve is the one Supreme Court of the United States, which itself is a functional and separate branch of government. So as we look at this landscape, we have to have the public in agreement on some of the foundational pillars of what the problem is, because that is the area that we would like to, deploy. And when I say deploy, I don't just mean in a militarized sense, but I mean deploy all of our energy, all of our resources, all of our capability into shifting and changing. And there's going to be some amount of National Guard. President Trump has sort of already hinted at that along in this process, because the rot is so deeply entrenched and the infestation is so, is of such a variety that there's no civilian mechanism in certain areas that's capable of dealing with that. At the same time, I do not believe that we're going to see troops on the streets of every major city across the United States of America. If anything, I could see pocketed areas where you might have a 7 or 10 day presence, depending on the type of operations for security and protection and integrity that have to happen in those particular areas. But in other arenas, I could see Americans standing out on the side of the road, just cheering people on and waving at them, and the Guard doing a very little bit of cleanup and then leaving the community, right? That's what the National Guard forces are here for. They're here to protect the community and assist and support the civilian infrastructure. And I don't want to sideline as we talk about this, sort of extra level of criminality, this extra serious nature of events that may be coming, and President Trump has sort of hinted that they are. I don't want to sideline civilian law enforcement and jurisdiction in that process, right? Civilian law enforcement will be handling the vast majority of whatever is going to come with respect to this civil unrest. There will only be small pocketed areas around the nation, and you may have 6, 8, 10, or 12 of them. I'm not saying that it's only going to be one spot, but you may have a dozen pocketed areas that may require additional support or additional severity and intensity, again, because of the nature, because of the length of time that the entrenchment has been there, where the civilian apparatus no longer functions. But I think you're in the essence of the question, the essence of the point you're making is the American people, even those of us that are very patriotic and that want liberty, freedom, and self-determination and the right to, transact business and live harmoniously with one another, the American people will not stand. And indeed, the situation could get well out of hand very quickly if the military chooses to stay on the streets in certain areas where it is not needed.
So, from my understanding, from conversations I've had with Juanito and other people that have come onto my show, is that all cities are going to suffer some form of civil unrest. This is why the local police force, the sheriffs, are going to be so important when this all starts happening. That this has been gamed out, and so the local sheriffs, your local sheriffs, are going to have a lot of are going to need to do a lot of work, ladies and gentlemen. But so we're looking at about over 200 cities that could fall into this civil unrest, but that throughout time, they're going to fall back on 13 to 15. So 14 major cities like Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, other cities like that, where the civil unrest will really take a hold. And that's where Trump is sending in the National Guard to prepare for this. Am I right in saying that, SG?
I believe you are right in saying that. And I want to stress also for the audience out there, this is one of the reasons that President Trump never misses an opportunity at every single point that he's in front of a camera or microphone to blame the issues of society and the problems of society on the Democrat Party as a whole, on the Democrat machine itself. Because most of the cities that you just referenced that are going to need that additional support, and in many cases are going to need significant additional support because of the type of foreign many of those.
Go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Many of those areas where you're going to see that additional support needed are located in blue states and have been in blue jurisdictions for a long time. So there is sort of a priming of the public narrative of acceptance, of the public's appetite and ability to accept some expanded authority for a very short period of time that has already been going on.
So people need to really understand what's at play here is that millions upon millions of immigrants are here that will be activated for such a time as this. And both sides know that that is what is coming. So it was almost like a beta test what happened in June. Do you agree with me, SG, on that? The Elon Musk X post about Trump kind of it triggered a premature move from the deep state. We were able to map, track, and trace the organizers of the protests, getting us ready for it. Was almost like a scrimmage to the big game, which will happen when the arrests take place. Do you agree, SG?
I totally agree. And I think we've seen several of those such instances going along in this process since this second Trump administration, publicly visible came to power in January of this year, right? We've had a number of different divestitures, a number of different dismissals, a couple of rather dramatic moments. We had Signalgate back in March, which resulted in the dismissal of Mike Waltz as national security advisor, and he's essentially gone out into the ether now at this point. The Elon Musk example of things was another brilliant maneuver of that sort of irregular warfare capacity, the need to create distance to achieve a different end and a different mean. And I think we're seeing the exact type of scenario playing out here in real time at a massive scale now, not just with a single individual or a single portion, but a whole subsect of the party itself, the MAGA base, as well as the electorate. I said party, the electorate itself, not just the MAGA base, but also those that are on the left of center of the ideology, to gauge where the public temperature is with respect to wanting accountability, with respect to wanting transparency and justice for serious levels of criminality that people are beginning to accept more and more as we go forward as having been very real and part of their reality going on, albeit without their awareness, but it was happening anyway. That's a tough road to go. And many people have begun at a publicly visible level with significant impact on the information space. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of followers and audience members and listeners out there that are paying attention to people like this, like Tucker Carlson, for example, that have begun articulating some of the more salacious problems that are going on out there in the world. And we're headed to, I think, an area, Nino, where eventually that's going to arrive back at the human and child trafficking component. But regardless of how it shapes up, I think fundamentally what you're seeing is a mapping of the public temperature, a mapping, a gauging of where the public is at the awareness level, where the public is on their desire for change and their desire for a better way of doing things, accountability in their system. The feeling where you used to have is when we were younger, where if you had something done wrong to you and you couldn't get a redress for grievance, you can go to the courthouse and get a fair shake and a fair hearing, right? Everyone wants to trust that again, because that is an idyllic situation in a true common law society, a true balanced constitutional society. And that, Nino, in my opinion, is what we're heading back to on the other side of some of these tumultuous events.
So we all know that the only card they have left now that it's the walls are closing in on them is what we've talked about for the last few years, is you can't win the chess game, so you knock over the whole chessboard and say, I won. So basically what they're trying to do now, what we need to understand is the agenda here. What they're trying to do is to spiral America into so much unrest, civil unrest, that we never come out of it. So that is why illegal immigrants must be activated for such a time as this. And that is why they're holding those cards close to their chest, so that they can play that hand at the right time. They can't shoot their load prematurely, folks. You know what I'm saying? They got to play their cards correctly. So that is why it's got to be, when they play this card, it's got to be at the right time. It's just like a boxing fight. You're jabbing, you're moving, you're hitting the body. You're waiting for that opportune time to land that left hook, that right cross, whatever, because power and speed mean nothing without precision. They have to work on precision. Both sides are doing this surgically. As much as you want to believe the Democrats are out of control, they're insane, they have a game plan too, right, SG?
They absolutely do. And that's one of the things we have to keep in mind with this balance that we're attempting to strike, right? We have to be, functionally aware and really centered and present in our logic and our evaluation of things around us, because all of the maneuvers that we make, all of the advances that patriotic actors make with respect to securing certain components of our society and certain components of our lifestyle, our cultures, and our systems, is going to generate a response from whatever resistant forces are left on the other side of that aisle, so to speak. And so as we go through this process, there are numbers, a variable litany of different pathways and textbooks that the opponents that are still out there, that resistance that still remains, could choose to play out and showcase to the rest of the world as sort of showing their hand and attempting to destabilize the progress of events on the ground. And we need to be able to plan for those and acknowledge that at all times they are going to try and manipulate our own progress against us, because that is how they work, right? This is sort of a very unusual way of fighting, where one side tries to expend, or where both sides, try to expend as little energy of their own as possible, redirecting the entirety of the momentum, the entirety of the energy that the opposite side has generated back onto themselves. And so as we go through this process, Nino, it's important for patriots to be aware of those types of tactics, to be aware of those types of things that are going to come not only to the narrative, but in some cases to the kinetic space, and to remember to step back and appreciate what's happening first and respond only if there is an imminent need for safety.
Let's talk about Putin and Trump now meeting in Alaska. This has got NATO and Europe very worried about what their plans might actually be. SG, do you have any intel on that? I've heard that it's, not only is 𝗬𝗏𝗏, could 𝗬𝗏𝗏 look at being ousted, because now 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 Gabbard is coming out with a lot of information on 𝗬𝗏𝗏. But I think there's more to this meeting that meets the eye than just ending a war in Ukraine.
I'm sorry, part of that cut out, and I only got the last segment there where you said war in Ukraine. What was the previous portion of that?
No, I said the Putin-Trump meeting is more. There's more to it than meets the eye, and that there's going to be this meeting. There's a lot. NATO and Europe are very worried about this meeting because a lot more can transpire than like trade deals, all kinds of deals, besides just ending the war in Ukraine. Correct?
Oh, it absolutely does. And interestingly, Nino, this is one of the subjects of Audio File 99 that's going to be released in the coming days. This is not a meeting to end the war in Ukraine, although that is functionally what is going to come as a result of this, right? We're going to get progress on that issue, however that looks. Maybe it starts with a ceasefire. Maybe it starts with both parties agreeing to come to the table and, call their forces back a little bit. We don't fully know what will come publicly yet out of this dynamic that's happening on the 15th of August this year. But the main reason I think that this is such a historic event and that this is so spectacularly significant, and because it is being held in Alaska, it causes me to double down on this significance even a little bit more. This is the end of the need for NATO itself. This is the end of the reason that NATO was brought to bear. This is the rebalancing of East versus West. This is the coming down, quite frankly, of the Iron Curtain on the other side of the continent. The Iron Curtain sort of stayed up ideologically across the European continent in the post-NATO world, in the post-Soviet world. But that Iron Curtain is now coming down on the other side of the Asian continent, where Asia meets North America, in Alaska, on U.S. territory that was at one point in time territory of the Russian Tsar. So this is an incredible event, Nino. I cannot stress enough how worried the globalist deep state inside the military pulpits of NATO is over this particular topic. And indeed, it is that pulpit, it is that orbit that I would be most concerned about with respect to destabilizing events in the days and weeks that are going to follow whatever comes on this coming event on Friday, because they are the ones who stand to lose the need for their existence in this process. And it's going to be very, very exciting to see, although a little bit tumultuous, I would also suspect, the responses that come as a result of whatever happens between President Trump and President Putin on the 15th of August.
Absolutely. And SG, I'm not going to keep you much longer. I have to get to a doctor's appointment. So I appreciate you coming on. Do you think you can broadcast later on today, maybe for Nino's Corner.tv?
Let's try and make it happen.
Okay, I'll reach out to you in just a little bit. All right, folks. I'm going to get to some what the fuck news right now. In what the fuck news, Minnesota teen says server forced her to prove her gender in a restaurant bathroom. A Minnesota teenager filed a charge of discrimination against a Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant Tuesday, alleging a server followed her into the women's restroom and demanded she prove she was a girl. Oh, 𝗀𝗂𝗶𝗹, 18, went to dinner in April with a friend in Owatonna, about an hour south of Minneapolis. I don't even know if I said that correctly. Sorry if I mispronounced it. When she went to the restroom, a server followed her inside and banged on the stall door while saying, "This is a women's restroom. This man needs to get out of here," according to the Gender Justice, a Minnesota gender equality organization that filed the charge on Mudra's behalf. Mudra, a biracial lesbian who isn't transgender, said that she has been in similar situations before when people have suggested she's in the wrong restroom. Well, stop making it so confusing. But when she tells them she's a woman, they leave her alone. However, when she came out of the stall at Buffalo Wild Wings and told the server, "I am a lady," she said the server responded with, "You have to get the hell out of here now," Gender Justice said in a statement. 𝗬𝗲 said she felt that she had to prove to the server that she was a woman, so she unzipped her hoodie to show her breasts. What? This world's going crazy, folks. It's insanity. We are living in insane times. The server didn't say anything in response, but left the restroom with her head down. 𝗬𝗲 said, "She made me feel very uncomfortable," 𝗬𝗲 said. "After that, I just don't like going into public bathrooms." Well, stop making it so confusing for people. I don't know. I just want to use the bathroom in peace, she said. I don't know, folks. I gotta say, I don't know. I went into the women's restroom by accident one time, but it was an accident. It was a complete accident. I don't know. The world's going insane. The world's insane. What can we say? It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch everything just kind of fall apart at times. But I gotta say, what's your all's thoughts on it? You think Trump's going to put it all together, put it back together? I think we're heading into a time. Where there is going to be a form of a police state, if you want to know the truth. And I got to say, folks, the more I think about it, only because I'm not a criminal, I don't mind it as much. If it's to stop violent crime, and as much as I say I don't want to see police on the streets or military on the streets, there is a calming feeling to that because there's so much violent crime taking place right now. It's horrendous. It's out of control. The fentanyl on the streets. I would like to see no fentanyl on the streets. Over 100,000 people dying a year. Over that, I don't know what the number exactly is. I've heard it's anywhere from 100 to 200,000 a year. So I don't know. I know that's got to be stopped, and I'm all for it. And I think we do need to bring our morals and values and ethics back to this country and become a God-fearing country again. So that's what I see. Alex, are you there?
I'm here, Nino.
What do you think? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I was hearing that Smash Mouth song, All Star. Those lyrics, "My world's on fire. How about yours?" That's the way I like it, and I never get bored. It's true, right?
Yeah,
It's
man.
true.
It's so true. Damn.
And yeah, I mean, we got crazy stuff, the gender stuff with the bathrooms. You hear this story, I mean, you feel bad for this person. You should, you know.
Do you ever think like at the master play here, this is all part of problem, reaction, solution? It's all part of it.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And like these like those have those thoughts, or you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, look, Trump, I'm saying that there could be bigger moves at play here that either Trump is wittingly or unwittingly a part of, because now he's bringing in a solution because we all despise the way the country was headed. But now we're going to accept military on the streets all of a sudden. And maybe they're giving up their sacrificial lambs, Obama and Hillary, for this, so that we do have a police state. I mean, that makes sense to me. Right.
Yeah. Anybody is sacrificable on the other side. That's what they're all about. You know, nobody's immune from being, you know, taking one for the team, so to speak. So,
right. And there's I don't know. That's the way I see it. I'm watching all of it. I said, when the pendulum swings left, we got to watch how far right it goes. Yeah. And that's what I'm really watching right now, because, you know, they got to come in, clean up, and get out of here. But you know that Palantir, AI, all that, everything's face recognition now. You walk into a store, they know who you are, they know what you're going to buy, why you're there. That's an invasion of privacy like never before seen in this country.
Yeah, it's just majorly changing things, and it's, you know, it's kind of redefining what our expectations or the definition of privacy or privacy in public or anything like that really is. It's yeah, it's just like unprecedented. It feels like we're just riding on the crest of the wave, and it's hard to see exactly where it's.
I believe, Alex, I'm going to say this. I'm going to state this. I believe in. Have you ever seen that movie Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone, where they live in this utopian society and there's no crime anymore? I think that's the direction we're going. I call me crazy, but I feel like we're heading that direction, man.
And what do they do in the movie? Like they know they have
it's almost like everyone's in this stupefying, naive bliss, aloofness that there's no crime. It's called Demolition Man. And I think people go back and watch that movie. I think it was they were onto something there, man.
Yeah,
so
check it out.
Just my view. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are, folks. And Beto O'Rourke. I don't think Beto O'Rourke's going to make it to 2028 at all. I think something like this will happen because he's playing with fire and they're dismantling the Democrats. I think it's game over for him. Just an opinion, just my opinion. But all right, folks. Thank you for joining me, Alex. Thank you. I'll see you. What's today, man? Is today Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. So we're back on Friday.
We'll be back on Friday. All right, folks. I'll see you Friday. Get to Nino'sCorner.tv. I have a busy day today, but I'm going to try to get Juan up there and SG up there as well. All right, folks. And the new heavyweight champion of podcasting and the black sheep of broadcasting, folks. Later.